Hello, this episode of ChatGPT and the Human Resistance is about Christopher Armitage and the Existentialist Republic. I was thinking to myself today, I've always wanted to have a consulting firm called Dusoma Consulting, and the motto is, you don't have to pay us, but you do have to let us in. We had a tiny exchange through his Substack. We talked a little bit about technology, and I want to kind of make this video and kind of show it to everybody just to kind of show some ideas about a person who has a really great playbook called Grab Them by the Ear, which is about really kind of how to call your senator and kind of how to do that on steroids. Calling your representative and all this very, very tactical, very, very good advice. I first of all found it very useful for things like I'd never really thought about being able to find political donors because they are listed publicly in a way that like charitable donors are not. And I hadn't thought about that. And I also want to say the great tip of buy me a cup of coffee. That site where what I could do for this document is give an email, get it for free, and then what I know from a marketing point of view, like at this point with our evolution of the foundation, we just need emails. We need to build that email list. So this is going to be perfect. We can take our own document called Project 2026 and make that downloadable for the cost of an email. So thank you for that little tip that you probably didn't even think you were given. So elections, calling your senator, all this stuff. So what I want to do personally is when I have to go back to Chicago and, when I'm able to work is I want to be, and I got to do something for a living. I want to be in the business of voter education, voter advocacy. I don't want to tell people who to vote for. I want to help them find the representative that's right for them. And so that's one of the things that I'm talking about with this technology. Again, that we're not telling you who to vote for. We're helping you find the person who's right for you. So that's point one. Another point, though, people hate AI. And I always explain it's not the AI that you're thinking. The AI that you hate is ChatGPT or Perplexity or something like that. And that's what I call like shouting into the void. So what I'm going to talk to you about with understanding this document and understanding how we can automate these things and make it more helpful, we are not shouting into the void of ChatGPT. We are doing a thing called RAG, which I won't even say what that means because it's very long, but we are literally just doing an AI search of a document most of the time. So when people say like, oh, you're going to help people pick a candidate, it's not asking ChatGPT who they should vote for. It's that we would have this like, maybe 100-page dossier, this matrix, and it would search, the AI would search that document. So so it's just a very, very important distinction because people hate ChatGPT and AI, and they keep saying, but it's not, and they're not understanding it because they don't understand that there's these two ways that the technology can work. Okay, he does say this is how movements grow, and I do think that we've grown quite a big movement against Trump. And how is that going for us? We had millions of people come out to a protest, and ICE was there, like grabbing people the next day, and grabbing people while we were all at this protest. What I want to show you is, and I'm going to be taking little breaks from this and then showing you in ChatGPT and screenshots. But okay, so we've got this document that is presumably on the screen. Grab them by the ear, how to make politicians do what you want. So the first thing I do is I just toss it into just a regular AI and do some analysis on it. And so what I would do in this case, and I'll skip ahead and show, but what we're kind of talking about differently that AI can give to us is, we talk about having a voter card. You have this voter card. And what this would do is kind of give you a voter document, and it would almost be something that like everybody could print out their own little document and you could hand it to your representative and say, if you check these boxes, you would get my vote. And then what I will also do, and I'll show this in the thing, so I'll take a break, is looking at what quiz it would generate. So if you go back and look at the Santa Fe mayoral video that I made, we talk about how you take a quiz and about your wants and needs and values and things that you want as a voter, and then it lines up your needs with the representative who's best aligned to you. So what we would do is I can also take Christopher's document and then make this into the quiz that he would give. So he would say something like on the spectrum with, I have to pick an issue, but anyway, let me just go to that example. The only thing I want to say, reading this document as a human, I think why it's great that you're looking at technology and helping this be something that people could do in a few minutes a week and not something that requires this is that, Christopher kind of lays out this plan that kind of assumes that you're maybe independently wealthy or semi-retired or you're a professional lobbyist. But, when I was a single mom 20 years ago, I certainly did not have time to be going to every town hall meeting. I did not have time to be showing up at the legislator's house on their birthday to give them a card. I certainly did not have hours free every day to be on the horn. I simply did not. And so to sort of suggest that only when you give this kind of time Can you make this change? I think we have to kind of, relook at that. We have to ask ourselves, like, how can people who speak Spanish, who are worried about being targeted themselves, how can they participate? So I think this technology does make this more inclusive. This would be something that we could adapt to someone who is personally concerned about being deported, wants to change the laws, hates this, wants to be counted, and how can we use technology so they can do it and they're not dependent on finding some local citizens to hopefully advocate for them on Saturdays between 9 and noon on days when the weather is good, like we tend to do at protests. But anyway. The only thing I'd also say too is that as this technology gets more successful, to have a strategy of writing from like 3 or 4 accounts, kind of looking like you're 3 or 4 different people, or kind of trying to act like you're 10 different people. If we're kind of thinking about the long game and kind of what's right for everybody, let's maybe kind of stay away from that. What we would like to do is what I call ivory tower takedown. And so a couple changes that this could make if we could kind of fix this system enough to that it makes like a better system. Because as we can all acknowledge, like sitting around calling your senator, I think a lot of people are very discouraged and don't feel this level of enthusiasm that he feels about this tactic. So anyway, but that's what he's expert in, and that's what is great about this document. So anyway, what is the ivory tower takedown? It would enable two-way communication because, so say you've got, I'm from Illinois, and so we had Jan Schakowsky, who was a rubber stamp progressive for, I don't know, 40 years or something like that. She was a representative when I was a teenager, and I'm in my 50s. But there's 18 people going for her seat. But so let's talk about this. So you're in, Evanston, Illinois, and Jan Schakowsky is your senator. She's very, very progressive. Something happens, like, really, I'm supposed to call Jan Schakowsky and tell her that I'm pro-choice? Like, she knows, like Dick Durbin was another Illinois person who was, always on our side and always that. So like, what's really the purpose of like calling someone who's a progressive already? And if you're calling a Republican, who's not on that side, then okay, that's great. That's probably even more effective. But this is where the ivory tower takedown happens. How can we start to develop two-way communication? How can we just have better communication with our representatives, especially if we're looking at this Jan Schakowsky seat for, state Senate or no, for Senate, and you want to have it where, sorry, cut. So you've got these 18 candidates, and these people are accessible, or they better be accessible, and at that level, the ones you can't even talk to, the ones who won't even take a quiz, the ones who won't even take a stand or a position. That's why this is really great, because at that level, they really should be responding. At that point, they're not so big that they just have some office. You're leaving these calls, but this is what I'd love to challenge about this and ask about is that. What do we feel about for senators? So say you're a Republican senator and you voted pro-life, and you wanted to really, really restrict abortion, and you're getting all these calls from people, saying you're awful, you're awful. And, how can that senator, you know, kind of, I'm sure they sometimes have the desire to say like, well, but this is why I couldn't actually do it. And that's why, despite, 200 of you calling, I'm still going to vote this way because of X. And so at least we would kind of know, at least we wouldn't just be like pushing and just, maybe we're just wasting our time, or like to kind of say to that person, what kind of numbers would you have to hear? Like what would have to happen? So I do think that we're doing that. The second thing I'll kind of take a little tangent on is for somebody like the Existentialist Republic, data dashboards. So they're talking about like all this data they're looking at. And I do want to do just a quick flyover of that. How you can download this stuff and you can use AI and tools, and kind of everybody's a data analyst now. So it can really democratize data analysis. And then just another thought question is what do you do with billionaire leaders? Like we're talking about Pritzker, being worth billions. His family is 250 billion. He has enough to do it himself. So when we're talking about billionaires now, billionaires control everything, and then our person that we're writing to and saying that billionaires shouldn't control everything is a billionaire themselves. I guess that's kind of an open question. Okay, and so then the last thing I'll say is that the DuSoma Foundation, what we're trying to do is beyond calling your representative, we want to understand why things are stuck and why things don't change. So we're going to talk about the John Oliver show, where he tells everybody at the end to call your senator, and it's like, okay, I did that. It's, an hour later, now what? And so what we're going to be studying is the court system, who becomes a judge, which kind of lawyers get picked to be judges, and what bias does that bring with them when they tend to be prosecutors or come from big corporations or be, on the side of powerful agencies going against regular little people. And when we look at something like United Healthcare and we ask ourselves, so this is where, so this is a question for Christopher and where it really breaks down. 90% of Americans do not think it's okay that United Healthcare causes delays in care that can absolutely lead to your death. And that is not illegal. And that is what we have all kind of learned through, the violence that happened is that, just because 90% of the public, at least, thinks this is a really, really lousy system, it doesn't change. And it's the simple reason we're told, well, it's, there's no law against it. And so we always talk about the whole saying, there ought to be a law. And so we are going to be looking at why something like denials that can cause the death of a patient, why that's not, something that we made a law about. Like, why? Like, what is the step by step? And I think what we can do in this age of technology, in this age of artificial intelligence, is really do a good job of parsing that and breaking that down. So we will look at something like this, or we'll look at whistleblowers, because that's the situation I'm in, is that what we're learning about whistleblowers is that whistleblowers never get their lives back. These are people who stand up. They take on incredible financial burdens of these lawyers who end up just themselves, getting lots of money, whether you win or lose. And things just don't change. And right now we've got a whistleblower for Facebook who's being charged $50,000 almost a day. Obviously the tactic is to absolutely wipe her out and bankrupt her. And there is nothing in the system. Again, it's not illegal. Union busting, not illegal. It's so how do we go beyond calling our senator and, anyway, and so he says you need a committed minority that never stops. And well, now we're a committed majority that's getting clobbered. So, but let's knock out this issue of calling your senator and make this into something that people can do in about 10 or 15 minutes a week. Obviously, the first thing that if you guys haven't thought of is that when we tell people to put things in your own words, obviously that's something that ChatGPT can do in 10 seconds. So, okay, you don't have to spend a half hour crafting a whole email about it. Okay, that is the recording, and thank you for listening.